friends. I hope you had a wonderful Independence Day weekend. I don't know about you, but I'm still riding high on the patriotic wave. We just started watching the series called Turn, which is about the true story of George Washington's Ring of Spies during the Revolutionary War. Now, I'll caution you that there is a reason why it's rated TV 14, and we've had to fast forward through some scenes which frankly were totally unnecessary. But the true story of the Culper spy ring is really fascinating, and it's one we didn't know much about. We're also planning to go see the new movie about Washington's early years called Young Washington, and we've heard a lot of good things about that one too. So, the stories I'll be covering today only highlight why it's so important that we do not let our patriotic spirit and our knowledge about our founding end with the last firework on the 4th of July. In 1688, British Parliament passed the Coronation Oath Act. On the day that they are coronated, the new king or queen pledges this oath and also becomes the head of the Church of England. In the oath, they are asked this: Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God, the true profession of the gospel, and the Protestant Reformed religion established by law? And will you preserve unto the bishop and clergy of this realm and to the church committed to their charge all such rights and privileges as by law do or shall appertain unto them or any of them? Now, there have been a handful of revisions to the oath since then, but none of them do away with the role that the king or queen has as the head of the Church of England, which is why so many people noticed when King Charles, in his annual report, decided to covertly amend his title, changing it from Defender of the Faith to Protector of the Space for Faith with the Multi Faith Nation. So England is having a bit of a full circle moment. It's gone from the Roman occupation and their pagan practices to missionaries preaching the gospel of Christ, to the Reformation in the Middle Ages, to the Anglican Church of England being the established church, to now being taken over by Islam. During the third wave of the Crusades, King Richard I, also known as the Lionheart, and Robin Hood fans will remember that. Well, he traveled to the Holy Land in yet another failed attempt to recapture it from the Muslims. If only he could have known that over 800 years later, his descendant would be not only welcoming Islam to the nation, but protecting and praising it as well. Many have questioned whether or not King Charles even has the authority to make such a change. The oath was an act of parliament, which is above the monarchy. So it appears that since there was no constitutional amendment made, that he has actually broken his oath. But what I want to focus on today is the phrase space for faith within the multi faith nation, which is a mouthful. Because when I first read that, all I could think about were the coexist bumper stickers with all of the little symbols representing different religions. I remember when my daughter was little and she began to first notice those bumper stickers. There are a lot of those here in Oregon. And I decided to do a little apologetics 101 with her. I explained what the symbols meant. And then I asked her if everyone who belongs to each of those religions believes that theirs is the one that is true. To which she said, yes. Then I asked if it's possible for them to all be true. She said, no. Then I explained how some of those religious groups literally call for the subjugation or even death for people in the other religious groups. How can it then be possible for everyone to coexist? The answer is that it's not possible. As Christians, we are to go out into all of the world and share the good news of Jesus Christ. There are no limitations on this. No people groups, religions, or worldviews that we are told are out of bounds for hearing the gospel. But this is the same command given to Muslims. The difference lies in how we approach spreading the gospel versus what they are told to do in Islam. Reading now from an article in Premier Christianity about this issue with King Charles, quote, the problem is that Islam is equally ambitious to invade the safe space of a multi faith environment. Muhammad divided the world into two areas. They are the Dar al Islam, which is the house of Islam, where Islamic law prevails, and the Dar al Harb, house of war, where it does not. Muhammad invites his followers to pierce the zone of multi faith with the call to submission and even sanctioned violence. In Surah 9, verse 29, he invited Muslims to fight those who do not believe until they are overcome and they must pay the jizya tax. From a biblical worldview, we know that Islam is incompatible with Christianity and that Christianity is what built all Western nations. I don't know if King Charles is taking a kind of sunshine and lollipops approach to this notion of safe spaces for people of all faiths to skip together down the yellow brick road. But the evidence is very clear from what is actually happening in the UK right now that you cannot import an entire population who ascribe to Islam and have it feel safe for anyone but them. The alternative to the king being naive, and what is probably more accurate, is that he knows exactly what he is doing and is intentionally taking the nation down this path and the monarchy down with it. In 1870, Reverend J.A. Wiley said, quote, while the throne of England continues to be Protestant, Great Britain will stand. When she ceases to be Protestant, Britain will fall. I fear that Britain has fallen, and without a return to Christ, it's hard to imagine how it will rise again. As the saying goes, it's Christ or chaos. Our second story of the week is truly heartbreaking for so many reasons and really was avoidable. Jamie Carney was a 43-year-old woman who lived in New York. She was a proud leftist and ally in the pro Palestinian movement. Her social media posts include a lot of vitriol directed at immigration enforcement and demands for open borders. She decided to leave America and move to Ireland with her teenage daughter, where she met Ahmed al Sakar, a Palestinian refugee living there. After they began dating, Jamie reportedly converted to Islam and happily posted about their adventures traveling throughout the UK. On Tuesday, her bloodied body was found by her daughter, and an arrest warrant is out for Al Sakar, who is wanted for her murder and has fled to Turkey. There are many, many stories similar to this one, which have occurred over the years. In 2018, a young American couple decided to ride their bicycles around the world to show how kind people are in other countries. But after arriving in Tajikistan, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but 5 members of ISIS ran them off the road and slaughtered them along with their travel companions. All of them were brutally stabbed to death. The reason I'm highlighting these stories today is that we are truly at an inflection point, and we have far too many people, particularly women, who have been so deceived that they are willing to risk their lives and the lives of their children to stand with those who only want dominance and destruction. This is especially true of those who fall in the progressive camp and will, for example, go to a Queers for Palestine rally, not understanding how quote unquote queer people are actually treated in Muslim majority countries. It's like going to a Chickens for KFC rally. It constantly has me asking the question, why? Why do they do this? The most gracious answer would be that they are naive, but I don't think that's the case. The overarching reason is that these are people who do not know the Lord, and therefore they are blind to the deception and the evil that they're falling for. But while that's the root cause, it branches out from there. I'll never forget the reaction I got when I mentioned in a conversation with someone that I believe that some cultures are better than others. The person was stunned into silence. But it's true. Some cultures and civilizations are better than others. And I'm done with pretending otherwise. Even as Christians, we have been conditioned into thinking that we aren't allowed to say that. But as I talked further with this person about what actually happens in Muslim majority countries, or even going back to biblical times when pagans would sacrifice their children to false gods like Moloch, they began to understand and agree with my position. As women, we are especially susceptible to lies, hence the name of this podcast. We tend to want to find the best in everyone. We think that we can solve the problem or we can fix the bad boy and prove everyone wrong. And our society has shifted so dramatically that we are being asked to ignore our instincts because, in the name of empathy, we're being told that we have to allow perverted men into our private spaces because they claim they are women. We're told that we're racist if we get nervous in certain parts of our cities. We're told that we must defend all religions, even the ones where we as women would be subjugated and lose all of our freedom. All of this is disorder, and it's an inversion of God's design. The very things that He hardwired into our natures as women are being weaponized against us, and too many are being led like lambs to the slaughter, literally. What happened to Jamie Carney isn't just random misfortune or an isolated incident. It's the predictable result of a worldview that rejects truth in favor of feelings, discernment in favor of toxic empathy, and God's order in favor of the illusion of equality among all beliefs and cultures. There are real casualties of the lies that have been sold to an entire generation. The lie that all paths are equal, that compassion means denying reality, and that our instincts as women should be ignored. We must get back to the foundation that is necessary for any civilization to thrive, which we only find in the biblical model. Ignoring that doesn't make us kind, it makes us complicit in the destruction of the very things that make life safe and flourishing, especially for women and children. As women, our calling has never been to prove how open minded we can be at the expense of our safety or the safety of our families. We need to walk in wisdom and speak the truth, even if it's offensive to the spirit of the age. The stories this week point back to the fact that this is all a heart issue. Without Christ, we are blind, easily deceived, and led astray. We need to refuse to participate in the inversion of the truth. The culture we build or fail to defend is the one that our children will inherit. That's it for this week, friends. Now, I don't want to resort to begging, but I'm going to get awfully close here and ask you again to please be sure you are subscribed to the Not Gullible podcast on Apple or Spotify and even now on YouTube. Also, please leave a 5-star review. I see how many people are listening, and I'm so grateful for that each week. And the number of reviews, and it doesn't match up. So, if you could take a few minutes and do that, I would be so appreciative. Have a great weekend and week ahead, and I'll see you back here next time.